The following program was made possible thanks to the generous support of our Kickstarter backers.
Well, first Holmes was born, and he got fat, bald, and tired.
Sup, Holmes?
Beware, your host, Jonathan Holmes.
Thank you so much, Sinistar. Micah, are you familiar with Sinistar, the video game character? He is our co-host on the show, an engineer. We're so lucky to have him. You'd think he would be busy doing intergalactic problem making or solving. But no, he's with us. And you have made so many video games. I read a list somewhere that you have been involved with in some manner. 120 different video games? Is that right, you think?
It's horribly correct, and it's probably now about 150 to 60 now.
What?
I work on small projects, right? So like you look at IDARB, for instance, this recent one or thing. All these games are really small. I've been doing digital titles for a while, so you get a lot done in a year. And doing this for about 20 years plus now, you get a lot out of the way.
Yeah, but still, I don't know too many people, digital title or otherwise, that have that many games. You must like this making video games thing.
I love it. I've been doing it since I was like 12. So
how did you do that? We'll have to start from the start. So 12 years old. How would you have gone about making video games at that point?
It's when there was an Apple II rolled into our classroom. I don't remember what grade it was, like third grade or whatever it was. And it kind of came in. I remember my teacher probably doomed me for the rest of my life, or made this set everything in motion. It was basically saying, this thing does this. You can print out reports, you can do this, and then she said, you can make video games like you play in the arcade on these. And my brain just exploded at that thought. I was like, wait, I can make video games on these things. So I stayed in on recess every day. And I would sit there and figure out how to program the machine with my friend. And we made games at recess. And then the kids would come back, and the teacher would let us show our friends in class the games we made. And so I was hooked from that point on.
Yeah, that sounds like an amazing elementary school. That was elementary school or junior high?
Elementary school, and it was kind of weird because now that I look back at it, it's a little progressive even back then for them to be really encouraging kids to do that. I remember we would get on a bus sometimes to go to another school nearby that had a lab of Apple computers, and they taught us programming and logo and all this other weird stuff too. It felt like I was in like Ender's Game or something.
That's awesome. Do you remember what kind of games you made back then, and also what kind of games you played back then?
So to show my age, I was playing Pac-Man, Jungle Hunt, and all those arcade games, those original classics. And I would design on paper all these game ideas like Vampire Pac-Man and stuff like that. And then I would try to make them on the computer. So the first game I made was a game called Destruction Hurdles. And you're trying to jump over hurdles. If you don't, like, it would electrify you and your head would explode and there'd just be gore everywhere. And for some reason at the top, there's like this little room where there's all these people very interested looking at you like, waiting for you to blow up. It was just this weird game, but that was the first game I had ever written.
That's Destruction Hurdles. I would love to play that game. Was it you did the graphics and the coding and everything yourself?
Yeah, everything back then, because there was no real, like, I couldn't go to a friend in class and say, hey, do you mind doing the artwork for me or anything. It was kind of a really weird thing for somebody to be a programmer at that age and have friends who did the same thing. So, yeah, I did all that, and then the second game was Sir Bounce-A-Lot, which was a clone, my first clone of Qbert. You're a spring instead of Qbert. You're trying to, but it was different because like you're changing colors, but you're also trying to stop flower pots from killing druids who are going across a bridge. It was really weird.
This is all almost too good. So you strike me as someone with an explosive, and we've used that word a couple of times already, head exploding. That seems to be the way your imagination works. You're just like, yep, they're running into hurdles and then they die. And then, the spring's bouncing around and then the droid's there and it all fits together because you are making IDARB, which from what I gather is just all imagination in one game. Somehow.
It is. It's kind of like IDARB was an excuse for me to go back to those early days when I had done a few things. I just joined Twitter really a year ago when I did this hack, and we can talk about that a little bit later. And I was really enjoying the engagement I was having with people on Twitter. And I had just come off a project in which I hadn't been programming for a little while. And so I wanted to program again. So I posted this one image of this new code base I started, and I drew a red box in the middle of the screen. I just asked everybody on Twitter, like, what should I do with this red box? That's why it's IDARB. It draws a red box. And everybody started throwing all these ideas in, like in the old days when I was in elementary school, when people would be like, can you make it do this? Can you make it do that? And I feed off that energy of people suggesting things and then trying to make it work. I'm a big mechanics guy. I love game mechanics, and that was my forte most of my career. And so when I would get these random ideas, my joy is like it's a puzzle. It's like I'm going to try to take this dumb idea and make it work in a game. So if somebody wants a robot that blows everybody up for some reason, I'm going to try to figure out how to make that work mechanically.
Wow, and I've been following the development of IDARB, but I've slowed down in following it a little bit this past month as it's been so busy around Destructoid.com getting our Game of the Year awards ready and whatnot. It also happens to be my 38th birthday today, so I had to...
Happy birthday!
Ah, thanks. Appreciate it.
There's a virtual hug coming through.
That's so sweet of you. Last time I was really... I wrote a story about IDARB a few months back. Swery65, I believe, is going to be in it. Is
yes.
that right?
So,
Yeah.
funny things started to happen. So we started taking this game to shows. And actually, to rewind a little bit here, the first show we went to was GDC this year in March. And the tweets that I had been doing from January 3rd through basically March got the attention of Microsoft. And they were launching their ID at Xbox program. And they thought, what better way to do this than to take this really weird thing that's going on and that Mike's doing on Twitter and see if we can get him to put on Xbox One. So they sent me a bunch of Xboxes and said, see what you can do. And about a week and a half before GDC, we got it up and running. And we're like, oh, let's take it up there. And what I didn't expect, though, was what was going to happen next. Like, they asked us to bring it, but I thought it was going to be part of this little lab experiment, like maybe off to the corner over at this place, like here's IDARB. But they put us next to Titanfall on the main floor, basically. So here's this really blocky 2-week, probably, if you add all the time together, it's probably 2 weeks of proper work on it, like next to Titanfall, which made no sense whatsoever. But people loved it. And a lot of the people who liked the game were other game developers. And so as we've been doing these shows, these other game developers are like, this game's great, can I, what can we do to help out and all stuff? And so we started adding in all these guest teams from other developers who were kind enough to let us use their IP in the game. So we have, like, Swear's in there and all the D4 characters are in there. We have, like, Lorne Lanning gave us Oddworld characters to put in. Double Fine came to our support very early and gave us all kinds of characters and support for the game. It's been just this amazing experience. And again, it goes right back to feeling like my friends and I just sitting around making this game for shits and giggles.
Amazing. So, and you went over this before, but just to reiterate, the game mechanics, the game concepts, the events in the game, the things you can do in the game were in part shaped by anyone who would tweet at you with a hashtag. Like, put a rubber, put rubbers in it, put condoms in it. Like, yep, no, there's condoms. And then you have like kind of a yes man attitude towards development where you're like, we will try to do that. Yes, we will do that. Is that all correct?
That's correct. Behind it all, though, I was thinking, like, this is a grand experiment. Let's just see if this can actually work, because my money was actually on the fact I said, I still believe it, that this would just crumble and fall apart. Like, there's just no way you can crowd design a game with thousands of people and hopefully have any semblance of anything enjoyable. But I thought that would be a great panel to do for the next year GDC or whatever. But as we were going, it just kept getting better and better. And like the people who were contributing were paying attention and really paying attention. They understood what I was doing, and they would make really like thoughtful suggestions. And the things and from all their favorite games. So NHL '94, for instance, or Smash Brothers, or NBA Jam, also they would suggest things that they thought would work, which was weird. And like I would just put it in, and it would. For instance, Brandon Sheffield, who's working on a game called Gunsport. We had originally the game was a bunch of people jumping around shooting at each other, kind of Towerfall-ish. And he's like, put a ball in there. And I was like, all right, let's put a ball in there. And then like guns went away because like we didn't need them anymore. Like this ball and making this scoring also was way more fun.
Huh. Wow. So how many did you have a cutoff? I assume because the game is coming to Xbox One February, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes, it's going to be February. It's first week available in February. Games
awesome.
with gold, and it'll be free for anybody with gold. So.
Whoa, all right. And we have some codes hopefully we'll be able to give away during the show today, which is exciting for the Xbox One owners out there and for people who will hopefully be getting an Xbox One for Christmas. This is very exciting. Or the holidays. Hanukkah is also next week. So anyway, you had to cut off eventually and say, okay, no more ideas. I'm guessing. Are you still taking ideas for IDARB? Yeah? When was the cutoff point?
The cutoff was probably in July when we realized we actually have to finish it to get a release because it's really complicated getting a game out on console. And you have to go through all these certification hoops, and there's all these special things, and especially when you're doing weird things like we're doing, like we have Twitter and Twitch integration, all these things that hadn't been done in a console game before. So there's a lot of just undiscovered country that we had to walk through. And so July we kind of cut it off, but people would suggest things anyways, and we're like, well, that's too good. We have to put that in. And so it kind of made it tough because even as we were going on, we're like, hey, we have to really put this together. Somebody would throw something really awesome at us, and we're like, oh, let's put it in. So we were planning on being out this year. That was our goal and everything else. But as we're putting all this stuff in, we're putting some last-minute things in, we realized it's just going to be cutting it too close. So that's why February is the actual date. But we're so close that we almost could have done it. So we're able to actually get our certification. We have all these codes, and we could order more codes and all this stuff. So I thought, what better way to make Christmas for a lot of Xbox One gamers than to get a ton of codes and start giving them out in December. And it's a good way to see how the game performs anyways. And I was a little freaked out by that, but it worked out.
That's awesome. And how is it's because some people have it. How is the game going over so far?
It's, I've shipped a lot of games. This is probably the best response I've had to any game in my whole career. All 160 games. Like, this is the best response. It's been amazing. People really like it. They're really engaged by it, and the suggestions. I'm getting more suggestions now, and they're all amazing suggestions. And the response, unreal. I can't even explain it.
So good to hear. So is there a single-player component to IDARB, or is it pretty much a multiplayer experience from the start and continuing on?
This game is so hard to describe because there is a single player, and it's got a story mode, and the levels are all inspired by like Mortal Kombat. It's just bizarre. It's like, again, like you said before, it's all this mishmash of bizarre ideas in my head. Single player's in there. We also have a salty bet mode, so you can actually go and have AI play against each other, place bets with people online over Twitch. We have a tournament mode, so up to 32 teams can play against each other in kind of like a round-robin tournament asynchronously and everything like that too. And then, God, what else do we have in there? Character creators, logo creators, music creators. It's just loaded. And it's bizarre. Like it seems simple, but there's just so many layers to it.
Do you think that's and I've been shocked that on Twitter and amongst game developers and amongst those who are like in the know, we're really focused on video games, everyone's talking about it. Everyone's really excited about it. But in terms of like big coverage, I've been surprised, and I'm part of the problem because I haven't covered it as much as I would have liked to. But it hasn't gotten as much like big coverage as I would have imagined. Do you think it's because it's hard to even like say what it is? Like we recently wrote about it. Jordan DeVore, our managing editor, Destructoid, wrote about it. He was just like, I don't know what this is, but I love it. There's like, there's a can in it. There's 4 players. There's an explosion. David Lang, I believe, from
Iron Galaxy.
Yeah, from Iron Galaxy, who created Dive Kick and is working on Killer Instinct. He's in it. Like, I don't know what this is, but it's great. Is the fact that there's so much, has that made it hard for the press to describe it, you think?
I think so. It's very different, and I don't blame mainstream press for like not really knowing how to describe it because I have problems doing it. There's somebody who described it on Twitter yesterday I thought was probably the best. They're like, it's a sports game, but all the sports. It's like it's kind of what it is. And so it's been really challenging. But a lot of the mainstream press, I think, also we don't have a lot of money for our marketing and PR and all stuff. So the game has been built with Twitter and social integration. And it's been the social tools out there and the people who are using them that have been getting the word out. And all these people, like every video blogger and YouTuber and everything out there has been really amazing, taking the game, playing them, doing all these Let's Plays, and getting the word out that way. And there's no way a bigger like site or anything could really pull off that much coverage about it. And also, I think a lot of people who are playing the game right now, we're giving out these codes, and the people who have been wanting the codes are people who have been interested in the game. And so once they get it, they've become the mouthpiece now for the game. And it's kind of like, I don't want to describe it as like a movement or anything like that, but it's like it's the people who've been getting the codes. The game is built for them, and so they can describe it any way they want and probably get the point across way better than I ever will.
That's yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's been a lot of talk of video game blogs are still important, but are they the most important way to talk about your game anymore? Maybe not. Maybe Twitter, maybe Let's Plays, maybe making the game directly for the people who are supposed to be playing it or buying it and having them then tell the world about what it's like is the way to go. And seeing as IDARB was made by these people, they contributed ideas to it, who's going to be more passionate about it than them when it comes to talking about it? Yeah. Exactly.
And it's actually working, and it's great. And I'm very thankful to all these people who have been getting the word out.
Yeah, and hopefully I'll be one of them soon enough. And I'm getting the word out now, I suppose, but actually playing it and talking about people and streaming it. Hopefully we can get it streamed on Destructoid Stream sooner rather than later.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun for me. So dialing it back a little bit, 12 o'clock. I mean, you're 12 years old. You're making games about hurdles that kill people and a Kubrick clone with droids. When did you actually start making games professionally?
It was, I think it was my final year of college. My friend and I, Bob Bavick, who's the voice and the music of IDARB, he and I formed a company and started making Game Boy games. So I was working on a game for Titus called Titus Jr., and it was Titus the Fox, this company called Titus, and it was their mascot character. And while I was developing that game, just on the side while I was doing sales in Michigan, actually I may have been just out of college, I saw an ad for Next Gen magazine. And I thought, well, I graduated college with an English degree. Let's see if I can get into Next Gen. It'd get me out to California. I was in Michigan at the time, and I'd be able to meet more game developers and publishers, so that'd be a good thing to do. So I reached out to Chris Charla, who's the head of ID at Xbox program, and he was the editor-in-chief of Next Gen, and flew out. He hired me, and for a whole year I was at Next Gen magazine. I met everybody in the game industry. And so I was doing Game Boy games on the side, writing for Next Gen during the day. And about a year after that, I went full-time game development, which was probably '98. It was probably when I went total full-time game development. I had been making games professionally a few years before that, but it was always contract and all that kind of thing. But then it was Digital Eclipse that I started developing games for in '98.
Wow. So, so interesting. I hadn't guessed. Being sounds like you make art, you're coding as well, but you have a degree in English and then got into the journalism side of things.
Yeah, I love Next Gen magazine, and I thought, well, if I could get over there, they like that. Everybody liked Next Gen. Like every game company, I'd have access to them, and so I did, and it was great. And once I went full-on game development, that helped me a lot. I was working with Activision, Electronic Arts, every major company at that point then.
Oh, awesome. And a lot of people, I'm sure, worked at Next Gen magazine, but not all of them ended up getting their feet into actual development the way that you did. And how did you end up making Game Boy games back then? Was that, did you actually, yeah?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I saw a website that explained how you could make a hardware or a cartridge that you can hook up to a PC and put Game Boy code on. It was a pirate cartridge, I think, at the time, but I thought, wow, if they can put any game code on there, I wonder if I can make a game, put it on there. So I started reading up some documents that were online, and figured out how to make a game. And I think I may have made the first homebrew game for Game Boy, because it was a version of Yar's Revenge, one of my favorite Atari games when I was a kid. And so I made that, and I shared it online, back in the early internet days back then in a way. And it got very excited. People were really excited to see an original game coming out, just released online. And so with that, I remember, like, when I was making the game, I was still working sales in Michigan. And I would sit there, and in the morning I would do all my sales calls. And because I was a technical guy, I was selling like point of sale stuff, like laser guns and stuff like that, and tablets back then too. And but I was so wanting to get that out of the way in the morning that I would like do all my sales calls, and when I was technical, I could like win them over on anything. Like, oh, it plays Doom on it, just buy it, and everybody would be like, okay. So I was like I was like the #1 sales guy in the office, as well as I spent most of the day just making games in my cubicle. So it was like this bizarre mix of things going on, where it's like, but I did that Yar's Revenge game, got it out there, and I got the attention of Howard Scott Warshaw, who's also in that E.T. Dig documentary, as well as myself, and he encouraged me to keep going, and so that was how I got into Game Boy stuff. Was that game became kind of like a pilot game out there, and publisher Telegames saw it and said, hey, we want to buy that and get the rights to Yar's Revenge and just actually produce a cartridge. So they did. They took that game I made, put online, and made a cartridge and started selling it.
I think I have the Yar's Revenge Game Boy cartridge, actually. Yar's Revenge is one of the games I loved most growing up. For some reason, the idea of this, like, insect fly giant...
It was awesome.
Like, yeah, it sparks the imagination in a very particular way. And he's getting revenge, but you don't know for what. But you can, like,
exactly.
You know, you're like, I want revenge too.
He's just angry. He's an angry fly.
And they sold that, right?
Yeah.
That's the same version I bought. Wow, that's incredible. Huh. And that started off as just homebrew. So you had the success from just being like, I'm going to be optimistic and I'm going to try to make a thing and hopefully it'll work out. From the very start, it seems to have continually worked out for you, though I have to guess there are times when it hasn't worked. Can you think of a project you've worked on that?
Oh, there's probably plenty. Like when you say like I've worked on as many games, like probably half of them have been duds, right? So more recently, there was a game that was really divisive that I worked on, War of the Worlds, which was an Xbox 360 game. It got equally positive and equally horrible reviews. So it's like, I think its Metacritic sits around 50 maybe.
Really?
And there's some sites that gave it like 100, and then some sites gave it a 20. So it was this really weird thing.
This was a 2D camera.
Yep.
A very like stark art direction, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
What did you do on that game?
So I designed, engineered it with a team here, and did a lot of artwork in it as well. And it was another one of those games where I was just like, I'm just gonna make this. And Paramount was into it and everything like that. And reaching out to friends and stuff. We got Patrick Stewart in it and all this other crazy stuff. And I was all excited because I love games like Flashback and Prince of Persia, those games, those fire and forget move games. But most other people don't. So I made a game that was just like that. It's like it kills you every second, every step you make, and everything like that. It's very hard. And people weren't quite into that one. But I look back on that, and I liked the game. But the one good thing that came out of it was the engine for it I used for IDARB. So.
Interesting. And just to dial back a little bit, what you just said was I had to reach out to friends, like Patrick Stewart. You're not friends with Patrick Stewart,
no,
are you?
I'm not friends with Patrick Stewart, but a friend of mine is. And so it's like you go friends of friends and all that stuff. It's like the Dark Void Zero thing, too, with Jimmy Fallon. It's like you end up just like know people who know people to help you out and do all that sort of thing.
Is that how that happened? So for people who don't know, at Other Ocean, you worked on Dark Void Zero, which was the DSiWare. So already, I was rooting for an underdog because DSiWare was just not a thing people were using. But there was some pretty cool games on there, Dark Void Zero being one of them. Dark Void was a Capcom game, 360, PS3, PC, if I remember correctly. And they wanted to make a cute little 3-world version of it that played a lot like an NES game. And Jimmy Fallon's name is in it, and Jimmy Fallon, said he played it growing up. Am I remembering this?
Oh, yeah. So this whole thing came about when you these things happen when you're really drunk at GDC. I was hanging out with Aaron Boys, who was then at Capcom, and they were working on the Dark Void game. They had just done, I think it was an April Fool's joke of an 8-bit sprite of Rusty, who's the main character of that game, on their website. And we're just drinking. We thought, how funny would it be if we actually produced that game, an 8-bit version of Dark Void, and pretend that was something that was being developed in Japan, and it got canceled. And so this new game is just an update of this old game. And we're thinking it was really funny, and we're like, we should do it. And then I went home that night, still buzzing, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to change every Wikipedia page on NES to include Dark Void Zero, just in case we do this. And so I started going at it, and I made a little prototype of it, and I took it to Adam, I think probably a few days later. And he's like, we're doing it. Let's just do it. And so we made Dark Void Zero as a joke. But then as I was developing, I'm like, I really want to maintain this facade that this was a game being developed for the PlayChoice 10 NES system. And so I kept changing Wikipedia pages, and I kept pushing out there anything I could. I would talk on podcasts and suggest that have you guys seen that game that Capcom just found that Dark Void's based on, and all this stuff. And people would go what? And I started getting all these emails from people from the MAME team and all this stuff going can we get access to that ROM because we heard this, and they're like, okay, this is going great. But I knew that if I was going to make it legitimate and make people really believe it, I need somebody who was more public, not me. And so I had worked with Jimmy Fallon on a couple game ideas before. He was this is before he had Late Night with Jimmy Fallon and all that stuff, and he was done with Saturday Night Live. And I don't think people realize this, and I think I have it right. I think he has a computer science degree, and he wanted to make games when he was younger. He's a huge gamer. And so we got a call one time from CAA, and they said, can you be in New York tomorrow? Jimmy Fallon wants to talk about a game. And it's I've done this so many times. I've met with John Lithgow to hear a game idea or whatever. It's people and stuff. It's usually you walk out going wow, that's going to be tough to do. I don't know if we're going to be able to pull that one off. So we're just okay, free trip to New York. Let's go do it. So we hopped on a plane, went out to New York, met with Jimmy, and the dude had a great idea. It was really good. I can't talk about it right now, but it was a really good game idea. And I was blown away. And I'm like, how is this even possible? This guy has such a good game idea. And it was very thoughtful game design, and he really understood the mechanics of game development and everything really well. So I was kind of shocked, but at that point we're like, yeah, let's try to get this thing done. And we almost got that game off the ground, but it kind of went away. But we kept in touch, and we kept talking about games and all stuff. And every so often, I'll send out an email or whatever. But he's pretty busy. But at this point, I'm like, if I could get him to just talk about it on national television, he had Late Night with Jimmy Fallon at this point then, and if you could just talk about it and legitimize it, then people would just believe it. And so I sent him an email, and I told him what I wanted to do, and he's like, okay, that's great. And so he had his dad scan pictures from when he was 8 years old and send them to me so we could Photoshop them into old Capcom marketing materials. We did this whole thing. We started leaking all this stuff, and the day that he was getting ready to go on a show, and just mentioned that he won a contest when he was 8. The whole deal was he says he was going to win a contest, and he was going to go to Japan, and he would be in a game for winning this contest. And the game was Dark Void Zero, but then it got canceled. That's the story. So he's going to talk about that on a show. And he's sending me these texts like before, and he's like, I can't do it. I don't know if I can do this. And I'm like, just do it. Just do it. And he did. And he went on the show, and it just exploded after that. And for probably a month after the game came out, people just didn't know if it was legitimately an old game or not. And but eventually, told the story, and everybody kind of got a kick out of it, except for a few. Some people were really pissed.
Really?
They were really pissed
They
that
were
we lied.
tricked. They were deceived.
Oh, man. I got this one where it's like, when you lie, you go to hell, and all of a sudden I'm like, what?
And when you lie about, cheating on your significant other or on your taxes, but when you're lying about winning, it sounds like part of the things that are kind of key to you as a person. You love the idea of kind of tearing at reality a little bit and recreating it and having that suspension of disbelief. Like, can you believe that this idea feels real that we're doing?
Oh, yeah, I love that stuff.
It certainly seems like it, and it was kind of having. I'm just assuming Jimmy Fallon wasn't paid a ton of money to help market Dark Void Zero. It seems like.
Oh no, he just did it out of the kindness of his heart. That's all.
Right.
It was just amazing, and so.
And because I'm guessing he was excited about this is something I can do. That's actually just really fun for the fun of it, instead of worrying about whether it's for money or whether I'm, my image, blah, blah, blah. It was like, this is something that I actually just think is fun to do.
Yeah, he was just a cool guy about it, and that's how almost all these things happen. Like, even with the IDARB guest teams and all stuff, people are just really cool about all this stuff and just wanted to do it, and it's amazing to me.
Do you already know Shock G, otherwise known as Humpty Hump? You seem like you might. I had this idea while I was brushing my teeth this morning, knowing I was going to do the show with you. It's like IDARB isn't getting as marketed as well. It's not being as well marketed as I'm hoping, because I want people to know about it, but it's very hard to explain. Maybe if Humpty Hump did a song about it, that would be the way to convey the feeling you get from IDARB right away, because it's like, this is normal and weird at the same time. Like, this is a conventional thing. This is a video game, but it's also something else that I don't quite understand. That's how I felt about Humpty Hump, so I was going to try to track down Shock G for you.
Give me Shock G, and we're going to make this happen.
You don't already know him, then?
I don't. That's one I wish I knew.
All right, well, maybe you will. I know a guy who Shock G tried to steal his girlfriend, which is kind of like knowing him, I guess.
Yeah, that works, and you can soften up with a couple free codes and make everything just all right for everybody.
He'll probably want an Xbox One and a free code, but we'll see. I'm the editor-in-chief of Destructoid, so maybe I can get Microsoft to help.
You can make that stuff happen. You're on it. You can do it. Maybe. You got such power.
No, I don't. But you kind of do. You video games, such a powerful medium to use, and you've been doing it for how long? How long have you been in this business now?
It's probably 94, actually. So is it 20 years? It's 20 years, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's 20 years.
Quite some time. Older than a lot of Destructoid readers.
And that's crazy, because I'll talk about stuff. Even now we have people we've hired who are really young. I'm like, Robotron, you got to do it. And just look at me with these blank stares. And it's like, God, I'm old. I'm so freaking old.
And yet you have this youthful passion that seems to be carrying you forward. Back on your history, though, so making your own Game Boy games, getting one published, Yar's Revenge for Game Boy, which is really cool. I'm going to have to dig that cartridge out. What was some of the larger games you worked on back then? What was your first, what you would call
first real big game? Was a game called, it was based off the Disney Tarzan movie. It was a licensed game, but it was all original design, and I wanted to make a game that was like those old Virgin Genesis games, like Aladdin and Jungle Book and all that. So I set out to make that game. We come up with some crazy technologies to use it. We're the first company, I think, to really support the Game Boy printer even before Nintendo, to the point that Nintendo was asking us how to use it, because the US side didn't have any libraries for it. So we ended up giving them code for it. They're asking us crazy things too, like, well, can you put an error code up if the printer's on fire? And we're like, well, why are you asking? Can you tell us how to do that? And so they ended up sending us a box of printers, and we ended up doing all this stuff for them, where it's like we had to figure out how to put up an error if the thing's on fire, if it's submerged in water, if it's frozen. And my brother's sitting there destroying printers all day trying to figure out how to get these error codes to come up. We figured that out. But that Tarzan had all this stuff in it, from printing to platforming and all these mini games and all the stuff that were in it. We had a hide and seek game, and again, like IDARB, it was just craziness all thrown into one game. And that cartridge went on to sell, I think, more than the PlayStation and N64 version combined, which was crazy. But Game Boy was just gangbusters back then.
This is black and white Game Boy?
Game Boy Color. So
Game
Game
Boy
Color.
I have to track. And who has the rights to that now?
You know, I'm not. I guess Disney and Activision still have the rights, I think, to that.
Huh. I hope they put that out on the Virtual Console. That would be
That would
really
be
fun.
awesome.
Yeah.
I run into people all the time who've played that game, and they always talk about it. It's like, really? Tarzan, that's great.
What did you print in Tarzan for the Game Boy Color?
It let you create scenes, so you had backgrounds and characters. It's like making your own comics, and then you could print them out on the little Game Boy stickers to put on your fridge, I guess.
What? So, and what was your role in the creation of that game?
I was the lead design and engineer on it, and so that was.
So were you think, as the lead design and engineer, were you thinking, like, what people want in a Tarzan game is printing, hide and seek, platforming? Like, did you think that was what the market wanted, or were you just, like, so filled with ideas that before you knew it?
I loved the movie, and I loved the animation, so I want to make something that looked really nice. And at that point, I was just like, and also, I have all these ideas, and Activision's not looking right now, so I'm just going to throw everything in. That's really what it was.
You were not the first person on the show to tell me, like, I've done my best work when no one was looking.
Like, that's it. Like, Game Boy games are always the, like, bottom of the totem pole. Like, the console games are the most important. Everybody was excited by what was going on console, so we were doing all these Game Boy games. Like, we did a game based on Little Nicky, and we ended up meeting Sandler and his guys, and maintained a pretty good friendship with those guys for a while, too. And all because Ubisoft at the time wasn't really looking at that game. We threw in stuff that was like, now in hindsight you go back and like, wow, we should have licensed that. Or like Regis Philbin, we didn't even ask him if we can put him in. And like Ozzy Osbourne and his music, why is that in the game? Like they should have told us no. Like all these crazy things. Like there's a boss in there in Little Nicky. When Regis Philbin comes out, he's like, is that your final answer? And he like tears his jacket off and he has a bat and starts beating the crap out of you. Like
sounds better than the movie. Sounds pretty awesome. Which is this Game Boy Advance at this point?
Game Boy Color still. We had a game where we have Hitler in a French maid outfit dusting like a living room, and you're shooting pineapples up his ass. That's in the game.
This is Little Nicky for the Game Boy Color.
It's Little Nicky for Game Boy Color. And nobody was looking.
Wow. Yeah, you just Game Boy Color sales just went through the roof on eBay after hearing that. Everyone's gonna want that for Christmas. I know I do. Pineapples up Hitler's ass, you say?
Oh yeah, and there's a dog who shoots arrows out of his nether region at like carnival things. I don't know why, but like, yeah.
None of that happened in the movie, right? I mean, you made a better. No, the movie's okay. I was kind of endeared to it actually because Little Nicky as a character, like he's sort of an underdog. You can't help but feel sort of bad for him. Just like the movie, I felt bad for how badly it was panned. People didn't want that in a Sandler movie, I guess. But you made it sound like a better Little Nicky than the movie.
It's like Dark Void, right? Where it's just like, you know, we'll make this little thing that's probably a little more just fun for everybody than what's based on. And I remember like I still remember the design meeting. We're like, okay, what are we going to do as a power-up? We're like, okay, he's from hell, so if he gets warm, he should be able to move faster and do more things. And so, like, you're running around trying to find exhaust pipes to get warmed up, and homeless people piss on you and stuff like that to make you warmer, so then you get, like, powers to, like, overcome the bad guys and stuff. So we threw all that stuff in. I remember all these design meetings going like, wow, this is crazy. But, like, Sandler and his guys loved it. Like, they would just, like, we'd send them builds, and they're like, this is great, and they would play through the game and everything. It was awesome. Great feedback and everything from those guys. But again, like, nobody from Ubisoft was really looking. There was a producer there, Yannis Millet, who now runs one of the Ubisoft studios. He was paying attention, and he didn't care. He was just like, let's just make the most fun thing we have here, and until somebody says not to, like, just keep going.
Was it ESRB rated with the homeless people?
It was for children.
Yeah, did it get E for everyone, even though the dog is shooting arrows?
I think so. I don't think they even looked at it. So.
Wow, that's and I'm so curious about the John Lithgow game idea too. I don't know if you can. Did that really happen, or did you just kind of those words?
You know, we didn't really. So we went down there and we actually didn't meet with John Lithgow, but he had a game idea, and we met with his manager, who was a woman who. I don't even remember the game idea, to be honest, but I remember like the woman we're talking to because she used to work at Universal and she did the E.T. game deal with Atari, and she was telling a story about how. Her boss is like, I don't know how much you charge for a license for a video game. He's like, just charge whatever, just ask for a crazy number, and then they'll tell us that's bad, and we'll just go with what they say. So she went in there in the room, and she said, like, I guess she said, on top of her mind, she just thought, like, do I ask, like, $25 million? I think she said $25 million. And so she went in the room, she said, Atari just looked at her, walked out of the room, made a call, and came back and said, okay, and they cut a check. And she was like, and she said, like, she got the best bonus that year. She's like, I can't even say what the bonus is because everybody who worked with me would hate me. You know? She's like, but now my whole life has been, like, just ask and see what you get.
So this is from and this, I think, was discussed in the E.T. Dig documentary.
Yeah.
came out, which you're in. I want to talk about that a little bit. But so people have, just in case we jumped too far, the Atari 2600, there was an ET game on it. It's like one of the most horribly, in terms of financial, critically planned and how much money it made. So you know the woman, and she ended up working with John Lithgow, and she asked for $25 million, which in 80s money is like, 10 times that.
It's like 15 bazillion or something like that now. But like, yeah, it was a lot of money, and she was just like, they basically cut a check, and I went back to my boss, said like, 25 million.
It speaks to this truth that the older I get, the more I find out that like anything can actually happen in adult world. You always think, oh, the people who work the hardest will get paid the most, and the people who are like smartest will be in charge. No, like you never know. If you just
never know.
Yeah.
Like when I was doing sales in Michigan, my boss, who worked out of San Diego at the time, this guy, Michael Shea was his name. He was head of marketing for Atari back in those days, and I found that out when he came by our studio where we were selling stuff out, and I saw something. I had an Atari thing in my cubicle, and he's like, I used to work for Atari. He's like this older guy, and he's like, let me tell you some stories. He told me this story about how like the year before the crash, Warner executives were coming out, and they were supposed to have a budget, and everybody at Atari's like, how do you even make a budget? I don't know how you're supposed to make a budget for next year or whatever. So when the Warner execs came out, they basically took him to a beach with tons of pot, and they all got high and figured out on a little notepad how to spend $500 million. So I'm sure part of ET came out of that.
Wow. And okay, so you worked in marketing and sales?
It was like just sales out of a warehouse.
And you just happened to end up working with somebody else who was connected to Atari from that era, and also John Lithgow's manager. Who you
pretty much
had a meeting with when you were working for. Who were you working for at that point? Activision or Ubisoft?
Well, I was working for Digital Eclipse, which is the company I did, and Digital Eclipse worked for all those different companies.
Right.
And so, so you can see, like, as crazy as IDARB and all these things are, my life is kind of like that.
Well, yeah, going into it, just knowing that you had kind of hacked your life or done hacking in general, where just like, I'm going to break the code on this and make anything possible. That's some of the stuff I thought I knew about you, but I had no idea to the extent that you hacked your life and just made like the impossible happen left or right, which is what IDARB is kind of about. Speaking of hacks, you did, and this is where I first heard of you. I'd heard of Other Ocean. I'd actually talked to somebody at Other Ocean about getting someone on Sub Holmes, like when Sub Holmes first started. It's a studio I've always been interested in. But your name specifically first got in the news because you made a hack of Donkey Kong so you could play as Pauline last year. Is that about right?
That's right. Yeah, my daughter and I had been playing games. She was 3 last year, and her favorite game was Donkey Kong. And so I started showing her the other Mario games, because if she liked Donkey Kong, she probably liked all these other ones. And of course, Super Mario Bros. 2 lets you play as Princess Peach or Toadstool, I think. I forget. And she loves that character. And so we would play that and everything, but it was a little too hard for her, so she wanted to go back to Donkey Kong. And one night, we're sitting there, and I load up Donkey Kong, and she's like, like, why can't I play as the girl? She wanted to play the girl because she had done that in the other game. And in my head, it was just like, I explained to her, like, you can't do it and everything like that. But then I'm like, this is what I do. This is this is what I'm made for. I was born to do this sort of thing. So the next night, I come into the studio actually the next day, and a friend of mine here said, here's all these tools if you want to do that, because I was explaining what I want to do. And then that night, I just started working on it. I think it was around 11 o'clock after the kids were to bed and everything. And it was around 2 or 3 in the morning. I had it kind of up and running. It was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So I started posting about it on Facebook. And then Adam Boys and my buddies and everything at the time, who Adam's now over at Sony, but they saw it and they're like, hey, do you mind if we post this other places and stuff? I'm like, yeah, go ahead, whatever. And then the next day, I remember my wife, God bless her, because she has to deal with all my insanity. We had to go to this charity event for my son's school, and she's like, don't even bring your phone, because every time you come to these things, all you do is sit there and look on your phone and stuff. I'm like, well, I got to bring it just in case. But I'll shut it off. I did, and I put it in my pocket and just kept buzzing and buzzing and buzzing all day, and I'm just like, ignore it. And finally, I told my wife, I'm like, this could be the babysitter, and maybe something's horrible going on. Let me just go check my phone. So I went outside. It's so many messages on my phone, and like they're saying stuff like, your story's blowing up and all stuff, and I'm like, oh, shit, what did I say? What interview did I say something horrible about somebody? Like, is it John Lithgow or whatever, right? Or, like I'm doing now. And so I was kind of paranoid. So I'm looking, and finally I'm starting to see it. And like by the time I found it, it was like the second spot on the top page of Reddit about this Donkey Kong hack or whatever. And I just couldn't believe like anybody even be interested in that. And then it just blew up from there. I posted it on YouTube, I think, the next day, and that started going crazy. And next thing I know, my parents are calling me up going like, "Good morning, America called here looking for you." And I was like, this little hack of an NES game, like Good Morning America wants to know about. But of course, everybody was really interested in the story and stuff, and like also my daughter and that sort of thing. So it was great.
Yeah, yeah. Did that open your eyes to how something like IDARB could take shape? Did that show you like the true power of social media at this point and how
Yes.
it involves with video games?
Absolutely. In fact, I signed up for Twitter as a result of that because I wanted to engage people on Twitter, and I'd not used it before. I only used Facebook, and so I started doing that, and that opened my eyes a bit on what the power of Twitter, and then the customization and what people want to do. People start hacking other games, and they're swapping roles with Zelda and Link and all this other stuff, and I was blown away by people being inspired by that hack. That when it came time to building this game, I knew from day one I wanted to make sure that anybody can do whatever they want in the game. They can customize their characters, create their own teams, do whatever. Every time we have a feature like that, I always think like, well, how can we have people express themselves in these things? So it completely changed the way I think about design right now, and going forward, I'm going to continue to do that because of it.
Huh? Yeah. It's the closest analog I can think of off the top of my head, and I've talked about this so many times on this show. It just keeps coming up. But I think about Minecraft, like, I don't even like playing Minecraft very much, but I think about it like almost every day. Like, as I was waking up this morning, I was like, Call of Duty's really popular, but it's got nothing on Minecraft. Like, the thought just hit me for pretty much no reason. And I'm still trying to figure out why Minecraft has been as popular as it is. And I'm guessing it's because it gives the power to the player back to be like, you don't need to play the game that's handed to you. You now have the power to make the game that you want to play, which is what you did with Donkey Kong. And I'm guessing that's part of why that story resonated with people so much, is because we've all been handed media for our whole lives. And like, yep, this is what you have to deal with, whether you like it or not. This is the movie you get to watch. This is the book you have to read. This is the game you're going to play. And you kind of showed, like, no, you can actually make it the game that you want to have in your life, for your family, for yourself. And now IDARB is kind of taking that concept and running with it as far as you can anyway. But after IDARB is done, people aren't going to be able to really hack it as much, or is there things you can do other than the character creator to kind of make IDARB your own after it's out?
So like right now, you've got the character creator. You can also create your own victory songs. You can share them with QR codes over Twitter. So people can share all these creations, and then people just hold it up to the camera, and it loads them into their games. And we're going to be adding sharing features for those in-game, too, so people will be able to share them between themselves. And then we're going to be, like, we have a whole roadmap on the whiteboard in the back of this office here of all the things we want to add to the game over the next year. So we're going to plan, just like Minecraft, you bring up Minecraft, we want to do the same thing. We want to keep updating this with more and more features for everybody. So as we go, we know people are playing it a certain way, so we'll support that. We have for instance, we already have in the game, although it's locked right now, so the game that everybody's playing doesn't have it available, we have a level editor. It's got a horrible UI, but we've got that in there because that's how we built the arena that's in there right now. And we have a couple other arenas that we've been trying out, but they're just not as good. We've got, like, there's these halftime games where you play combat and, like, Duck Hunt inspired games and tug of war and all this other stuff. We want to add more of those in there and then add a mode for just to play those because people love those games. And that's as a result of people getting in the game right now. They're like, I just want to play all the halftime games in one big, like, Olympic event. And it's like, all right, we'll add that in. So we're going to keep doing this. Like, if people are engaging us with so many crazy ideas, it's like, why not? Why not just keep updating it?
Wow, yeah, I had no idea all of that was true, and I had this like sudden wave of pity for Nintendo, who's working on Mario Maker, which is like really cool. But compared to IDARB, like it's kind of like, you know, it's 1/8 of what IDARB offers you in terms of what you can do in terms of customization. It sounds like, and creativity. It sounds like really WarioWare do-it-yourself, which I wish had done better. It was a pretty DS game that came out. For some reason, it didn't sell very well at all, but that's the closest I can think of to a thing that allows you this much creative control and then play what you made without it strictly just being like making a video game.
Yeah, we're not worried about, like, you know, I learned an acronym when putting together IDARB. So people were using it. I kept trying to find it online. TTP, which is time to penis for user-generated content. How long does it take for somebody to do that? And the reality is Nintendo doesn't want people to do that, right? Like they limit the creativity a little bit in a lot of their things. Not always, but in a lot of it. And like for us, we're just like, I don't know, let's see what happens. And so I think a lot of the reason we're so flexible and that flexibility attracts people, and they come in and try to make horrible things. I just played a game this morning against a baby Jesus in a manger type icon thing, which is bizarre, and he kicked my ass, baby Jesus. But like the fact that somebody could do that for this time of year, and like go in and kill me as I'm trying to be Darth Vader against baby Jesus, it was awesome.
Yeah, that does sound awesome. So do you think that's the key to user created content and making it work? Minecraft, they didn't have to do it. They 100% were just like, make whatever you want. Whereas Nintendo and a lot of their user-created content games, I like a lot. I like Mario Paint. I like WarioWare Do-It-Yourself. I think I'm going to like Mario Maker. But it is kind of half. They are also saying, and we are the designers, and we are making a product for you to experience the way we wanted you to. And Nintendo is kind of notorious for saying, well, the new Zelda game will only have stylus controls, and that's because that's what we want you to experience. That is our idea. We don't want you to water down our idea with some of your ideas and change the controls to traditional. It seems like you have to go all or nothing. Is that what you're saying?
That's the philosophy from the beginning. It's just like all or nothing. And I watch my son and his friends play Minecraft all the time. And I was blown away during the production of this game. I was blown away. Like, I go home and I see what they're doing, and there's no limits on anything. And it definitely inspired us as we were putting this together, because I wanted to kind of follow that theory or that philosophy. And so, yeah, right from the get-go, we're like, you know what? There's going to be this Twitter feed in there. They can shut it off, but anybody can tweet to that. And there's going to be all this and all this and all this, and I don't care. Let's just see what happens. And it's holding. The community has been doing pretty well, but at some point there's probably going to be some awful things coming over.
Well, sure, but that's okay, because that is a reflection of this is the world we're in, and to keep that unfiltered is a brave thing to do. So Twitter is actually running in the game as you play it?
Yeah, so as you're playing, you're seeing what people are saying about your game. If you're streaming it, people can tweet to your specific session and talk to you during the game. So like their words are coming up, as well as anybody who's talking about IDARB at any given moment in the world. That's all crawling at the bottom like a little sports feed coming across. So people can say whatever they want about IDARB. If they put hashtag IDARB, it's just coming into the game. And then we have on Twitch. Anybody who's watching on Twitch can trigger things in the Twitch chat. So they're Oktoberfest, hashtag Oktoberfest as one word. If somebody does that, it fills the screen up with beer, and it turns into a beer hall, and everybody's swimming in beer trying to score goals. If they do hashtag lights, the lights go out. And if they do hashtag decoy, all these decoy balls start falling out everywhere, and nobody knows who has the real ball. All that kind of stuff. So.
Wow. All right. How did you, from a coding perspective, like these are things almost every developer I've talked to has said, oh yeah, it would be fun if we could do this, this, and this, on a running commentary line at the bottom, streaming from Twitter, but they're like, I don't know how I'm going to ever code that unless I get millions of dollars. How the heck did you figure out how to do all that stuff?
Oh man, it's like, it's a perfect storm, because I work with one of my childhood friends, Kevin Wilson, who's another engineer. He and I basically worked on this game technically, and he did all the engine-specific stuff. And so I would come up with these crazy ideas like, I would love to put a Twitter feed at the bottom, and he would just say, like, you're an idiot. Why would you? And then the next day he comes in and is like, yeah, here it is, it's working. And like that. He's a genius. And so I would just throw stuff at him, and he would just come back with all this stuff. And then Chris Larkin, another engineer here who came in to help us a couple times, he had a friend at Twitch, and he's like, and Microsoft and everybody's like, we don't have any way to read the Twitch feed. So we just got a hold of his friend at Twitch. He's like, oh, yeah, here you go, and just gave us this code. It's like, that'll work. And so we put it in. It's like, oh, that's awesome. It works. And so I think we're the only game on Xbox One that even knows how to do that. So,
yeah.
It's like all in there.
Wow.
But again, it's like falling back on friends. Like Reeve Thompson, who's over at Twitter, he's an old friend of ours. And so we had some questions about how to deal with the Twitter stuff. He's just like, let me know. He's the head of the games group over there or something like that, or works in the games group. And yeah, I'm saying head of the games group is probably, oh, my boss is going to be pissed. But he's in the games group. And yeah, he just opened the doors. He said, like, you know what? We haven't seen anything like this. Like, there's no other games that are kind of doing this. So he opened the floodgates, let us have access to all their engineers, and also they gave us all this exposure at their first annual conference and showed everybody the game. It's just been amazing. Twitter's been supporting it. Twitch has been supporting it. Like Microsoft, everybody's just been going nuts on it.
Wow. And you didn't know this at the outset of
No, not at all. I was just like, just dumb ideas come up, like, what if we could do it? Call some people, and it's like, oh yeah, just do it like this, and it just works. So now I'm looking back on, like, we were really lucky to walk into all this stuff, because we would try the Twitter stuff out, and we're like, well, how do you just tweet a specific game session? And then, like, Kevin had the brainchild of, like, well, I could come up with a unique ID and put it every game session based off of the console's ID and the time of day. And so he came up with a 4-character ID, and so that's been working, and all these really like crazy ideas suddenly worked, and it was like magic as we're going. Like every day was almost like Christmas on this project.
That is so great. I'm trying to contain my excitement for you. It's contagious. And speaking of that, do you feel as though that's part of why you were able to help put this whole thing together? Is it your like, I don't know how self-aware you feel you are. We know I don't feel very self-aware. But I can't think that it's luck that this happened to you, that you also happen to know Jimmy Fallon and Adam Sandler and almost John Lithgow, and you know everyone at Microsoft and at Twitch, and like, is it the fact that you are so excited and open to other people that's allowed you to be able to make games like this? As a person, you seem quite sociable and easy to connect with. Has that been a big advantage, you think?
It probably. Like, the thing is, like, if I'm not talking about video games, I'm just like this quiet guy. Like, I'll be at events at my kids' school where the parents get together and stuff like that. I'm just like, until somebody talks about a video game to me, and suddenly it's like, whoa, wait, let's talk about this and that. And it's like, but if it's like sports, so for instance, like, I won't say who, but like a popular football player, for instance, wanted a code, and I had no idea, and he was kind of saying who he was and all stuff, and so I called Andrew Ayer, who runs the company here with me, and I'm like, do you know this? Is this a real football player? He's like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? Football is my biggest weakness. I don't know anything about football. And I made NFL Blitz for Game Boy, and I don't know anything about football. I was like the only guy in history to make a football game that knew nothing. I remember getting a call from Midway. They're like, safeties don't work. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, let me think about that. I cut the phone. I turned to my coworker, and I'm like, what's a safety? It was awful.
That game turned out pretty good, didn't it? It's a football game. Like, it is football.
Game. It was okay. There's better versions of it, but like, it shows that I didn't know football. But you know, Blitz was an action game, football game, so it's like it helped to be that.
Yeah, that was the NBA Jam days of
exactly.
Trying to co-op sports and turn it into like a action.
Yeah, Mark Trammell, who made those games, NBA Jam and Blitz, was a genius, and like he made me like sports.
Yeah, me too. And Cyberball, which I was.
Yeah, Cyberball was awesome.
Wasn't it good?
It was so good. I want that back. I want a new version of Cyberball.
Me too.
It's been in my head when I was making IDARB. I'm like, I just want to extend this into a Cyberball kind of game. It was so good.
Really? That's a strange coincidence.
I took somebody to say that was football, and I'm like, what? This is football?
I wonder what it is about Cyberball that just, again, like Yar's Revenge, it just kind of like captured my imagination.
Oh, I loved it. Like, honestly, when I was making Blitz, I was making all the connections to Cyberball, because it's like, oh, okay, that's what this is. Okay, it's just, now I know. It's like, honestly, like, Cyberball was just, I knew it was kind of football, but...
For people who don't know, it was a Sega Genesis game. I didn't own it in Genesis, but I went over a friend's house who had one, and we like traded that way. He'd come over and play Super Nintendo. I'd play Genesis at his house, and I wouldn't want to stop playing Cyberball for days. Top down, you have to like run up. Yeah. Well, do you think it's the exploding robots? Is it the risk reward
so.
of the
it
ball?
Must be that.
Yeah,
that was more fun to me than the early days of Madden on Genesis, because I like, as much as I don't know anything about football, of course you have to play Madden. If it's when that came out, everybody was playing Madden. But like Cyberball just clicked, and I got it, and it was so much fun. And you know, I think later versions of Madden caught up to that and that sort of thing. But I was more of an NHL hockey kind of guy. So
yeah, I like the hockey games too, and NES. You know, NES ice hockey is still one of my favorite games. Period.
So good.
Something about it. Yeah, again, it's the feel of it.
Like, that's the one thing with like IDARB. I want it to be extremely simple. We have like one rule really at the end of the day, which is avoid missing the goal, and everything else is like, that's all you got to do. And you have jump and shoot, and that's really all you got to care about. And you build all the complexity on top of that.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And mechanics are really your thing, as you were saying earlier. What do you think it is about just devising game mechanics that like excites your imagination?
It's like a game for me. It feels like I'm problem solving, or like, you know, figuring out how to get through that adventure game or whatever. We're like, oh, this is all we need to do to solve these 10 problems with the game. And every time you like refine or tweak a mechanic, it seems like the whole game gets better as a result of it. So it's that thing where like when you're like doing photography, I'm the worst photographer. I failed photography in college. It was a big waste of money. But when you finally got a shot where the focus was exactly what you wanted, where you know the background's a little blurred, you got the subject perfectly in focus or whatever, it feels like that when you get the mechanics right. That's pretty good. I don't know what that feels like actually in photography, because I suck. I'd imagine.
Right, getting the elements together, a little bit of luck and a little bit of perseverance, and a little bit of skill. all coming together. I only know photography from Photograph Boy, which was a TurboGrafx 16 game.
Yes,
and
that was awesome.
You know Photograph Boy too?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We like a lot of the same stuff.
Pokemon Snap was even cool. So
yeah, that's a great game. I know Nintendo would make a lot of money if they brought that back.
Mobile. Bring it to mobile.
Oh, good thinking. Yeah. Speaking of which, so IDARB is Steam and Xbox One, is that right?
Xbox One. So like Microsoft very early recognized the potential of the game. To their credit, they recognized it before I did, and they came in and they secured it as an exclusive title for Xbox One. The exclusivity will run out eventually and that sort of thing, so we'll go to other consoles. But they did that, but PC was totally up for grabs, and so we're working on finalizing the PC version of the game as well. Don't have a good estimate on when we're going to be done with it, but we're trying to go as quick as we can. And we'll probably release that with some new features in the game that will help encourage people to get the PC version, and then we'll eventually update the Xbox version. So those two are the thing. We're going to have various apps available on smartphones to allow you to do character creation and music and all that stuff to share with people in the game, as well as we have smart glass support that we're going to refine. It's in there, but it allows you to do hash bombs from your phone as well. If you don't have Twitter or Twitch, you can at least use that. And we also had a goalie mode with Smart Glass too, which allow you to block goals and stuff like that. But I don't know if we're gonna. It sucked. So, but it allowed us to have 10 players. We're excited about that. Like we can have 10 people now playing at the same time. But yeah. So those are the platforms right now.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you know what? One of the engineers here actually started to port it to NES. So we have like the very beginnings of an NES version of IDARB.
No way. But that's not possible in terms of what the NES can do power-wise and
yeah, it's just gonna be local multiplayer and use multi-tap and go for it.
I'd certainly play it. Wow. So what do you think it was about the game that got Microsoft so interested and so committed to it?
I think, you know, I'd worked with Chris in full disclosure before, so he'd been following me on Twitter, so he was able to see everything I was talking about. And I think he was excited by the process of the game development. He thought, he's launching the indie program. This is a great example of what an indie game is. And he thought it'd be a good story, I think. And so he really supported it from day one. And actually, he and quick after that was Phil Spencer, who also gave it a lot of support. Like he came by at GDC, played the game with us, told us how much he liked it, and he really supported it online and everything with his followers and everything. So it's been one of these things where whenever we'd ask for something that would be usually difficult to get, Phil and Chris and everybody there would just support it 100%. Like if something was a little awkward and you normally can't do on a console, they made sure we could do it and everything. So it was really cool.
Huh? Awesome. Do you think that IDARB and I'm remembering the developers of Cuphead, two brothers who are on the show too, it seems like out of the games that immediately come to mind, those are the two that Microsoft seems to have really latched onto and said, we want you guys to represent what the indie side of Xbox One is about. Is that the feeling that you've gotten, that they kind of want to have you spearhead on that?
It seems like it. I mean, they've been very good about getting the game out there at every kind of show that exists and make sure that like anything that they could do to help us get the word out has been supported. So it feels really strong. Whenever they do press releases, we're always prominently in there, which is phenomenal. The Cuphead guys, wow, that game, I can't wait for that game.
Yeah, they're super cool guys.
IDARB's over here, Cuphead is up here on the pedestal. I love that. That just looks so good.
Have you talked to them at all? You can do a crossover, I'm sure, if you want.
I know we were trying to. It was getting really late when we realized like we should have had Cuphead in the game if they would let us. And but we didn't get a chance to reach out to them in time. Like we got Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time characters and a team in there, which is great. And we started to go out there. Like I would love to have gotten the Chariot characters and stuff like that in there.
Oh yeah.
But we're just running out of time, and we had this list of like all the people wanted in the game, and we didn't get a chance to get to the rest of it. And an update, I'm hoping to get a lot more in there. We got several developers now, after we've given out codes, have reached out and asked if they could actually participate too, which is mind-blowing because some of these people are like my heroes, and I'm like, really? Like, here, take 10 more codes and whatever you want to do. You can rename it.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, it feels. I wonder. Some people love King of Kong. Some people love Indie Game the movie. I mean, I'm meeting these people. They don't really like video games. I have to go out to a family function or something, and people end up asking what my life is like. I'm like, oh, I like video games a lot. And they're like, oh, I think I saw you on that Indie Game the movie thing. Oh, wow. Because I'm in that for like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It seems like there's an IDARB movie or a Micah movie waiting to happen with John Lithgow playing himself and whatnot.
I mean, John Lithgow can play me. That would be fine.
And Adam Sandler
Mika, and my dog Spot.
But it is your story that seems to be part of what people really have latched onto with part of why they've picked up IDARB. The story of the creation of IDARB in and of itself is a pretty amazing story.
If anybody wanted to do that, they have my blessing.
Yeah? All right. Hopefully one of the people watching the show will talk to somebody out there who's...
Some big Hollywood guy's going like, I've got all this money to waste, and this looks like a good idea.
$25 million.
He's not doing anything right now. He could play the role.
Before, I don't want to accidentally miss out on some of the illustrious games you've worked on. We've talked about Tarzan, we've talked about NFL Blitz, we've talked about quite a few things. Any other games that you wanted to make mention of that were particular high points for you in your career in the past?
Well, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix was really good. That was a fun time because that was, again, out of the relationship I had with Adam over at Capcom, now at Sony. At this point, Street Fighter was kind of dead in the water. Nobody was doing anything with Street Fighter. And it was kind of this crazy idea between him and Chris Svensson, who was over there, and Robert Johnson. I remember those three all kind of supporting the idea of, like, what if we, because the U.S. was the group that actually controlled Street Fighter at the time, like, what if we just remaster one of the Street Fighter games, see what happens if we do that on digital? And so that theory and the kind of concept we kept mulling it over, and we ended up making several games with them, but the first real big one was the Super Street Fighter Remix. And that was an awesome time because we were doing, again, at the time, we were doing things that we didn't know if we could do or not. Spectator mode, no latency, network code, and then remastering this really low-res game and trying to figure out what the original artist intended with the characters. So that was really tough. And we opened up to the community on that. That was actually another one of those. Now that I think about it, I look back on all these things, like, I've just always gone to the internet in every project. Like, what do we do? Do my work for me. But this was actually an accidental leak. I think one of the producers over at Capcom accidentally leaked some of the artwork that we were working on, and the Street Fighter community just hated it. They hated it. And it was like, okay, well, let's embrace this and start showing everything, and let's see what they don't like. And so the community became the producers pretty much of the game because they were so vocal and they knew exactly what it needed to be. And we just ran with what their suggestions were. And so we refined that game, and the end result is basically the result of the Street Fighter community saying exactly what they wanted and us listening and just putting it all in the game.
Really? I was very, very excited. I was a huge Street Fighter fan growing up and was awfully depressed when the series seemed to disappear for, I think it was a good 6-8 years between Street Fighter 3 and people usually quote Street Fighter 4 as the return of the series, but now that you mention it, yes, it really was Super Street Fighter 2 HD Remix that brought Street Fighter back.
They told us the success of that is what led to the green light for Street Fighter 4. So that was, there we go.
and what did you do on HD Remix?
So I was the guy who put the plan together with Capcom, and then I was the studio manager, so I was kind of like executive producer on that project.
And was it your idea to get Udon involved, if I remember correctly?
No, you know what? I had such a great team on that. It was Dave Serlin, and he's a designer who's big in the Street Fighter scene and stuff. Like, I wasn't as big into the scene of Street Fighter. I was a huge Street Fighter fan, but these guys, Eric Eberhardt and a few other people that we had on staff, Thomas Greve, they were really into Street Fighter and the competitions and everything. So I let them run with it. They were like, we need to get Udon, we need to do this, we need to do that, and like, we just followed their lead, and they found all the right people, and they came in, like, Dave Serlin retuned it with the remix mode with a few of his friends, and there's kind of like this love letter to Street Fighter. That's how we looked at it when we're putting it all together. And there's a lot of trust going around from Capcom to us to the individual team members who were on it, and it just worked out. Man,
it's making me wistful for, geez, what was this, 2008? 6 years ago? Is that right?
Yeah, probably. That's probably right.
Like that.
Yeah.
It seems like Capcom was such a different company then. There was this idea of doing love letters to their fans, to their games. I don't think that's completely absent from them now. Dead Rising 3 had a lot of really nice nods to Capcom games, obscure and popular in the past. But in terms of really running with a project, Strider was very good, I thought. Yeah. Double Helix, I think, worked on that.
Yep.
But there was a real run of these love letters to Capcom for and by the fans back then that I just don't see as much of. Were you involved with any of the other ones?
Yeah, so we also did the Puzzle Fighter remix.
Okay.
To that. And at that point, Capcom was like, okay, we like what you guys are doing. Let's see if you can sequelize some of these games. So we did Commando 3: Wolf of the Battlefield, which was the full-on third official game for Commando. And then we also did 1942 Joint Strike, which I was really fond of. I felt that captured 1942 pretty well. And at this time, this is when Adam Boyes, Craig, and let's see who else was over there, Chris Svensson, and all these guys were just like, the dynamo of Sony that you see right now, a lot of those guys were the ones that were at Capcom doing the same thing. So right now you see all this excitement around Sony and the Sony experience and all stuff. A lot of those same people in that DNA came from Capcom during that time and brought it over to Sony. So I think when they all left Capcom, that all sort of died off, which is kind of a shame because those were great days. I mean, Capcom was bringing everything back. They had the Mega Man 9 and 10 and all these other things. It was just like, wow, this is Capcom as I know it. And it seems like it's coming back now.
Yeah, I hope so.
Weird drought for so long.
Yeah. It seemed like there was a lot of, I don't know if there was tension. From what I gathered from people I've talked to at the companies, the people who are really passionate, who started off as the new guys, like wanting to prove themselves, like we can do this marketing initiative for Street Fighter 4 that involves Snuggies and like crazy. Is this gonna work? They had all the success and were eventually at a point where they were feeling like, well, we've proven ourselves. Are you really going to respect us on the other side? And they still felt like they weren't getting the respect and that kind of bad blood that can happen there.
Yeah, it's like when you consider a company that has so many offices, and if they're, I've seen this, being in the games for so long, I've seen this happen over and over and over again. It's especially with Japanese companies where you have so many different divisions, and the group that controls it, whether it's in Japan or anywhere else, if any other part starts to get really successful or have something kind of going for it, it's kind of tough because like they're so competitive, and so when you control the company and you're getting competitive, it makes it really challenging, I think, for people. And I just assume that's what happened with Capcom, but I've seen it in console wars. You see it with Sega and that sort of thing. It repeats itself over and over.
Yeah. Is that something you would advise people who are running their own studios, running their own development companies, publishing companies, to avoid that kind of internal competition that comes out as hostility and actually seeing the other people in the team as an enemy, sounds like?
Oh yeah, so like you mentioned Double Helix earlier. At one point, our company Backbone Entertainment, guys who we're called Backbone. We made Street Fighter and all that stuff. We were part of a greater organization called Foundation 9, which was around 1,200 people all over the world in different studios. And Double Helix is one of the studios in our fold. And back then, we were a bunch of studios, development studios that came together under one roof, so to say, virtual roof. And the amount of like on-the-ground soldiers kind of competition with the other studios was sometimes toxic. And there was no reason for it. There's never a reason for it. It was like I was spending most of my time just trying to fight that. And then sometimes I would fall into it too, where it's just like, you know what, yeah, why the heck is this happening, and like whatever. And when I look back on that, I think like, wow, we spent so much time and energy just trying to calm everybody's fears about the competitive nature of each studio and who got to do what projects and that sort of thing. It really detracted us from what we're trying to do, and I think it really hurt all those studios a bit. Everybody was trying to win over the same projects, and if somebody got some project, why did they get it? We're better than them, and all that kind of stuff. That all starts to come out, and it makes no sense to me, because if an organization that large with so many talented people, I can't believe like it gets that toxic and that acidic. So when I left Backbone, I went to go help some friends of mine start up a company called NG Mocha, which was a mobile company, and I got the sense of what it was like to be a startup again in a small company, and that was awesome. And about a year after that, I was expecting my second kid. And I'm like, I can't do startups 24/7 like this anymore. Like my family doesn't even know me anymore. So I got back together with Andrew Ayer, who's head of Other Ocean here. We had been Backbone and Digital Clips before that, and we just got the band back together. And now we're a smaller studio, and we have small groups around the place. We have one in Canada, one here, and one in Manila even. But we run it like a small company. Like we let everybody control their destiny and do this sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So how many games has Other Ocean put out at this point?
Oh, that's a good question. You asked just days before I get the full gamography, because like I just asked somebody, can you put together a gamography of everything we've done? We've done everything from like games to when the game industry was hit with the recession. We even had to go do things that were just normal apps for like iPhones, stuff like that. Like we did a Stella McCartney fashion app. We did like Vogue. We did Vogue's iPhone app and stuff like that. Like we're doing all these kind of things until stuff got healthier again. And so we have all that. And we also did advert games. We did a game called Duty Calls, which was a parody of Call of Duty to help.
Oh yeah, people love that game.
Yeah, people went nuts. They love the sense of humor and stuff. And that we worked with Weed and Kennedy on that, and like the guys who did the Old Spice commercials. So we worked with them on that, and we did this total parody of Call of Duty. And I think collectively 24 million views on YouTube and everything. It was like crazy. It took off and it worked. Almost too good, because it was supposed to be promoting Bulletstorm. They were just talking about like duty calls, I think. But we were doing all this kind of crazy stuff, and we're just like I think it was Dark Void Zero, duty calls, and these sorts of things that helped us refine our sense of humor in our games. So IDARB is a result of all that kind of stuff too.
Huh? Yeah, makes a lot of sense. It's hard, I'd imagine, when you are a company that does work for hire, when you have to put the client who's paying you first a lot of the time to have your personality come across, and it does feel a lot like IDARB. Like there's been hints of your personality all along, like Dark Void Zero, if people were willing to pay attention. But compare that to, I don't know, like Lambier or Phil Fish or Jonathan Blow, who really put their, like, people get the sense that you are playing a game made by these individuals, and their games really feel like an extension of them when you play their stuff. Other Ocean hasn't had the opportunity to do that as much, in my opinion, which is maybe why people haven't you haven't been as big of a name in the indie scene or whatever. But that seems like it's about to change with IDARB. At least that's the feeling I'm getting. How will that be for you if you end up being one of these, 50,000, 100,000 Twitter follower video game developers? If you end up being one of these known auteurs, who if you do one little tweet, people say, "Oh my God, Micah said that Mario Brothers 2 is better than 3. What a bastard!" And starting in that kind of hate mail kind of fame in the industry. How will that be for you?
I don't know if that will happen, but if it did, I pity all those guys, because the stuff I post is probably so mundane compared to everybody else. It'd be great though. I mean, if you look at IDARB, like I still don't know what our personality is, other than to describe it as a hot mess. But like, if that's our brand, hot mess is Other Ocean, then yeah, if people like that, sure, see what happens.
Well, I would, as I know your games, and I did again take notice of you some time ago, because there's something special about Other Ocean to me. It's like this genuine passion for games, putting the game and the concept first, but at the same time being like unable to keep from making it weird. Like you just like, it seems like we even think about it, but we couldn't help but put Jimmy Fallon in it, and there's a whole cutscene about Jimmy Fallon in the game because we didn't even think it through. It just happened. Like you get that feeling when you play your games that there's this unbridled passion that can't help but be in there, even if you didn't intend it to.
We were laughing the other day because we're like, what if we went back to all these games we've worked on? Because the people I work with right now, I've been working with for years. And we think back on what if the publisher didn't make us take that out? Like, what would have happened? Because there's almost every game we worked on, all the way back to the games we did with Nintendo and stuff like that. Like, there was crazy stuff in there that eventually they're just like, this might be a little too much. Like, we had to pull stuff out. Like, Alice in Wonderland had some crazy stuff in it. And sure, a lot of it had to come out. There's a lot of drug references and stuff, and it's for children. But it was like, there's stuff that we're doing in there. I'm like, what if we just kept that in? Like, that game probably would have been a lot better. And
when you said worked with Nintendo, actual Nintendo, or just working on Nintendo consoles?
We worked with Nintendo on Alice in Wonderland. It was a Disney-Nintendo collaboration for Game Boy Color. And so I would get these crazy notes like from Japan on like, maybe you should put in a mushroom that makes you grow and shrink, or whatever. It's like, well, that's pretty original there, guys. And we did. We put it in. But like, it was pretty cool. And we also were working on a game that didn't ship. It was based on Gauntlet, the old arcade game. Because even then, Nintendo came to us. They're like, you guys really like these old games, and we thought Gauntlet would be an awesome game for the Nintendo DS. So we made a full crazy new update to Gauntlet that was on DS, 4 players. You could play online with online voice chat and everything. It was cool. And then Nintendo realized the PSP wasn't going to be a threat, so they stopped all their kind of US development on these they didn't own Gauntlet, so they didn't want to do it. So they helped us shop it around, but ultimately it didn't get released. But it got some reviews, and the reviews were stellar. Like, we got like 80s and 90 and all this stuff from all these different places, and the game never came out. So it was like one of these weird.
I've never been so angry at Nintendo, and I've been mad at Nintendo many times. They're one of my favorite developers. I love a lot of the designers there, but I've been mad at them too, especially when they didn't release the e-reader cards for those extra Super Mario Brothers 3 levels on the Game Boy Advance. But this tops that. It was done. Your Gauntlet for the
done.
DS
In
was
fact,
done?
we did a Let's Play with the guys over at Double Fine, and that should be coming out pretty soon, so people will be able to see the game. But it had some crazy features in it, and we're doing all kinds of stuff with it. But like Nintendo, I can't blame them. They told us from the get-go there's risk on it because it was an IP that they didn't own, and they're exploring this thing. So when it did get canceled, they were amazing about it. They paid us well, and they helped us shop it around, and they were offering discounts to other people, like as far as like what it would cost to publish the game. So they're really good. But like it was the same problem. Everybody didn't want it to be Gauntlet. They're like, can you make it this other big IP or whatever? And it's like, I don't know if I can put Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen in a game about, in this fantasy game where you're fighting Satan or whatever. But, we could probably, I love the idea, but like you might want to talk to the license holder.
My God, I had no idea. I've been involved with Destructo.com for 7 or 8 years now. I had no idea that Nintendo would pay a studio to make a game that is not their IP and just be like, we'll figure it out later. And then in the end, they're like, sorry, guys, your great game is just never going to get played. Wow.
I think it speaks actually volumes to their willingness to try different things. Like at the time, you would never have seen Nintendo do that. And like it was pretty cool that it came down to, I remember we met with the 2 producers from Japan who flew out to visit us and talk about it. And we filled the whole room up with Gauntlet. We had the Gauntlet arcade machine. We had every port of Gauntlet, everything at our fingertips. And the first thing they basically told us was like they both used to play Gauntlet in college and loved it. And that was kind of the impetus to it. They're like, Gauntlet would make a great DS game. Let's try to do it. And they pushed us really hard. Like Nintendo, when you work with Nintendo, they push you so hard. Like when they're asking us to make the printers explode and see if we can get an error code, like that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? Like they do that stuff. I remember like Alice in Wonderland, they were like, Alice kind of runs like a girl. It was like, how is this supposed to run? And like, but like they really just didn't like the animation, so they're like, just go back. So we kept iterating on stuff. It's like it's crazy stuff. Like I remember in Alice in Wonderland, also they're like, we want 4 layers of parallax scrolling on Game Boy Color, and it was really nutso stuff. And we're like, well, tell us how to do that. Your hardware doesn't even support that. And they're like, I don't know, just do it. And so we would bang our heads and we'd figure out how to do it, but they would push you so hard to make the game better. So I appreciate it all. I sound like a battered wife. I'm like, no, Nintendo's great. No, just don't let them ask for anything.
Well, yeah, they've caused you some pain, but you can't help but it sounds more like a player whose coach was unrealistic, but at the same time, it implied that they had a lot of faith in you from the very start. They thought you were the ones who were going to be able to figure out the Game Boy printer, and it turns out they were right. You did.
Yeah, and we were the first, I think, to do the 3D on both screens of the DS because they had a theory it could be done, but then they threw it at us to try to solve it for gameplay. And so we did with Gauntlet. It's like both screens are 3D, and that was a big deal at the time.
Why is this not something I have right now? So is there any way this Gauntlet, because you own it, and who has?
So nobody owns it anymore now. Like it's one of these things where Midway kind of owns the IP, Nintendo owns some part of it, and then Backbone used to own part of the code, but our company's not Backbone anymore. So nobody really, you can't. It's one of those impossible games now. You won't ever be able to release it because somebody owns some part of it, and you'll never get them all to agree. But I think somebody found an early version of it online because somebody was telling me that people were making YouTube videos of it. So you might be able to go and see it on YouTube. But yeah, I haven't explored that much. I have an old cartridge of it. Like we have one of the EEPROM burned carts of it. So that's what we did on the Let's Play. We were just using that to play it.
Wow, my God, yeah, so many things happen in this industry that people don't. Again, this is a scene in the movie. It's got to be made. It's going to be better than King Kong, if you ask me. We have a few questions in. I want to get to them before I forget. Last week, I totally forgot to do questions. Weirdly enough, David Serlin came up last week, too, as he advised on this game called Pocket Rumble. Really cool little fighting game. Just got greenlit from Cardboard Robot Games. So, yeah, forgot to do questions last week. Sorry, I'll do them right now. Kev asks, at any point in development, did you ever think that IDARB may just never happen or wasn't worth the effort?
You know, like probably 2 days before I started handing codes out, I was talking to Chris Charla at Microsoft, and I'm like, I don't even know if anybody's even going to like this game. That was actually in conversation where I was just like, I really don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, there was many times like, because I would develop this game almost every night when my kids would go to bed, because I was doing other stuff most of the year here at the studio, other games and everything. So like this game was a side project of sorts. And so the kids would go to bed, and I would just stay up basically from like 7 to 8 from that point till like 3 in the morning, and then wake up the next morning go in the office, work on something else, and then do that again and again and again. So there's many times when I just thought like, well, like who's really gonna play this? And should we keep doing this forever? But then everybody would do a show, and everybody at the show would be like, this is awesome, and like you have to put it out, and I'll give you all this coverage or whatever. It's like, oh, do they like it, or are they lying? Because the whole time I'm always like, are people lying to me? Because I've been in situations where like everybody's just like, yeah, this is great, and that comes out, and they're like, I always thought that was a piece of shit. And it's like, what do you mean? So I was just worried about that all the way through this, and even when it came out, I was on pins and needles. I had no idea if people were gonna like it, and then people start coming back saying it's this, it's that, and I'm just like, really? Are you lying?
And do you think that's because you were so close to it, that IDARB had been in your brain for, some time at that point?
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to, like, my whole career. You're doing stuff on these games, and every time you want to do something that you think is cool or stupid or whatever, and have it beaten down by the people you're working with. And so this is a game where that's unbridled. We're like, let's just do it all, and, like, nobody's stopping us. And in the back of my head, I think I have this little thing of, like, this nagging me of, like, well, there's a reason all these people told you not to do that in all these games. Why are you doing it? This is just going to blow up and not work, and nobody's going to like it. And so that haunts me all the time. And so with this game, I was fighting that inner demon the whole time, where it's like, should I try to make this a little more normal? Should I? No.
I want that inner demon to be in the game now. Like, I want to hashtag that. To have, like, as you're playing, it like zooms into his stomach, and there's a demon there being like, just give up on playing.
Third-party publisher, like, stop, take jump out. Don't make them run like girls.
It's Alice. It's a girl. Piano Hands asks, what was the moment when you knew that video games would become your career? Was there a moment? Are you even sure of it now? Hopefully you are, but...
I wrote a letter to Activision when I was a kid. I had just played Pitfall on Factory Center. It blew my mind. I say this all a lot, but I thought that was amazing because I understood. I had a whole story in my head. It was like Raiders Lost Ark kind of thing, and so I started drawing pictures of games. I remember I drew a picture of a game where you're a detective on ice skates, going across ice, and you're like dodging natural things like tree limbs and stuff like that, but you're trying to catch this criminal who, for whatever reasons, on ice skates, trying to take some information that he stole and go somewhere. And like, I did this whole thing. I designed it all out. I wrote it all out, and I sent it to Activision. And I sent game ideas to every company I knew, Atari and everything. And Atari, when they sent stuff back, it was usually like, hey, you could be a distributor for Atari arcade games, and here's a catalog. And it's like, you didn't even read my letter. But Activision, they read it. I don't know who it was over there. One of the guys there read it and thoughtfully gave feedback on everything. And said, like, also, and it was really cool through there, like, don't send your ideas to everybody because somebody might steal them. But and then encouraged and made book suggestions and all this stuff. And it was just like, oh, this is really cool. And the way it was worded and the way they treated me and whoever that was at Activision, I love them. They just basically said, you have the makings of being a great game designer. Here's what all you need to do next. And your idea is really good. Just change these things and go for it. And it was like, this is awesome. And so it was kind of that moment I knew, like, okay, my favorite company that made Pitfall is telling me I can do this. And so I just went nuts after that.
Wow. And again, all of these games, all these game ideas, I just want to play them immediately. Did you say detective on ice skates?
You're a detective in a trench coat on ice skates, and there's cracks in the ice you have to jump over. You have to duck under tree limbs. There's squirrels throwing things at you, and you're in hot pursuit of this guy who stole some plans from somewhere. He has like the whole like I remember vividly. He had like the whole bandit mask on, or the guy had a briefcase. And I drew everything I drew on paper. I would draw on pixels because I just thought, well, this is what you have to do. And so I drew everything as like blocky and like Atari graphics.
Wow, yeah, it's really bringing me back to the ridiculousness of Cloak and Dagger, the Dabney Coleman movie.
You know, it was probably because of that. I bet you, because like I love that movie.
Yeah, me too. I was watching it the other day. It's like unreasonably fun to watch, even though it's poor. His imagination is so alive, that kid. I can't help but love him. The Cloak and Dagger.
There's that secret game that nobody can get a hold of, and it's like, oh, that game.
That poor nerd. If people haven't watched it, there's like a stereotypical nerd character who
in the store who
meets
an
untimely end. Yeah, because of video games. Scary. Cautionary tale.
Tempest for 5200, by the way, in that movie. It never came out. I wanted Tempest so bad. It's Atari sitting there like messing with my head.
Well, like you're messing with my head with freaking Gauntlet DS. I'm so mad. You didn't put the robot from Gauntlet 3 from the Lynx in there, did you?
No, we didn't.
Right, I can feel a little better.
That would have been interesting though, because like there's a handful of people who probably picked up on that if we did.
Well, yeah, it's I'm also diehard Gauntlet fan for whatever reason. I loved Gauntlet 3 on the links. So knowing that the robot wasn't in there, I can feel like maybe it wasn't the very best game ever, just like one of the best, and it's okay.
You know what? You would like what I'm working on right now. I've been doing this side project where I have a Gauntlet arcade board and a Gauntlet control panel, and I'm fashioning a case so that it's a briefcase, like a big suitcase with wheels. And you open it up and it has a flat panel and you play Gauntlet at any party. So I'm gonna be like carrying around this big Gauntlet like suitcase and set it up at parties like, let's play Gauntlet. I'm halfway done with that.
You are not doing that. You're doing that?
Why not? I'm actually doing it.
And a briefcase, and you can
It's a giant wooden case that you open up. Gauntlet for everybody. I'm bringing it to the people.
Gauntlet 1? Gauntlet 2?
It's Gauntlet 2. It's Gauntlet 2. I don't have Gauntlet 1. I'd probably put both in if I could. But
well, Gauntlet 2 is all you really need.
It's revved up in Gauntlet 2. So.
Yeah. There's no ending to Gauntlet, is there? I could never beat it.
No, I don't think so. I think it just loops around. Or there's 255 levels, I think. If I recall correctly, but I love that game.
And there's a dragon in Gauntlet 2. Remember that?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I remember being terrified of him. And
yeah. You don't expect it if you played Gauntlet. Gauntlet was the first time I had police officers tell me that we had to leave the premises because I was a kid with my friends. We're at 7-Eleven. We didn't realize how loud we were until the police came in and like were just pushing us out of the place. I remember the guy who was running the 7-Eleven shaking his fist at us, and I'm like, "You should just tell us to be quiet." I guess he was, but I don't know.
Wow, the stories just don't seem to end. SSEVF. Svef, maybe? I didn't want to mispronounce it, so I spelled it. Asks, what advice would you give to people trying to get into game development? That is a hard one. But yes, at this point, as you know the industry, as it's changed so much in the 20 years that you've been in it, and right now, 2014, how would you get into the game development industry?
I would say just start making games. Get Unity or Game Maker or anything out there and just start figuring out everything. Like a lot of people say, I'm not a programmer, I'm not this, but you don't have to be a programmer to make a game. Like the languages right now are a lot easier than what we had to do when I was a kid. I learned how to program literally because I didn't know how. I had this sector editor. It was a disk copying program that let you write directly to the sectors of a floppy disk. And I thought that's how you made games. So I basically reverse engineered what I was looking at of games that were on disk. And I'm like, what does this symbol mean? I would write it down. I'd change things to see what would happen. And I made this isometric frog game that had split screen and all stuff, all from reverse engineering, like my favorite games on the Counter 64, with a disk editor. There was no language. I wasn't even looking at a language. And I remember bringing it to a computer store, and I showed the computer, or guy who ran the store. He was like, well, this is amazing. What'd you make it in? And I'm like, disk maintenance? And I showed him what I was doing. He's like, you're a freak. And he gave me all this software, these books. And he's like, read these, use this software. And like, sure enough, it took me like 2 months to do that. And like, at that point, I was banging out a game a week. I'm like, this is amazing. You can do all this easy stuff. And I thought this was good. Just whatever it takes, make a game, because people are impressed with your logic and what you can do to bring the whole package together. Like when I get resumes, the best way I review people is, have they even made a game? Because you need to understand every other aspect of every discipline before you can actually work with anybody in those disciplines. And the best way to do that is to actually live in their shoes and try that all out. So make a game. No matter how lame the game is, it doesn't really matter. Go on Game Maker, make a detective on ice skates game or whatever. Do that and show that. Don't be ashamed of it, because people are actually more impressed that you even pulled it off. And that speaks volumes than what you've. I don't want to discount school or anything like that, but it speaks more than what you say on paper.
Yeah. It is, from what I gather, a matter of your character. You don't want to hire somebody whom, sure, they like video games, they like working on them sometimes, but you want someone who shows that they have this kind of uncontrollable urge to make a game and see it through even when it gets hard, and not give up just because they're going to run into some parts that make them feel bad or make them feel like, I'm not good at this, so I'm going to give up. You want to know that people are going to push through that, and also that they understand every discipline and are hopefully going to be more understanding to the other disciplines as they work in a team, because you can't. It's very hard to make a video game completely by yourself. Some people do it, but not on that large of a scale for the most part. Man, yeah. Wow. It's been a heck of a show. We only have a minute left. Sadly, can't believe how quickly it's gone by. There's so many other things I wanted to ask you. English major? Like, what? Why?
The reality is I was a film major, and then my university shut the film program down my last year. And I'm like, well, can I graduate with a film degree? And they're like, no. So then I just diverted because the closest thing I had was an English major, because it was almost all the same classes. So I just took a few more classes and came out an English major. But it was originally film. That's what I was trying to go do. And then I remember, oh man, because like, so if you think about it now too, I had written a screenplay. It's called Dynamite Iron. It was 3 different stories and about like this group of people who, Bill Bixby was in. I don't even remember. You know, a hot air balloon, and it was really messed up. But my professor said, like, just get in a car, based off the script. Just get in a car, drive out to California, live off the streets if you have to, but just go screenwrite. And I was like, yes, that's what I want to do. And then I was too scared to just hop in a car and go to California and live on the street. But I would have probably been in a film major had that not shut down.
Wow. Huh. Yeah, but the video games you knew were for you after getting that letter back from.
Oh yeah, exactly.
But there wasn't really school for.
In Michigan, there was nowhere you go for any of this stuff or anything like that. So there was no way I could really do it. And like Chris Charla, who helped at the idea of Xbox for him, he and I years ago made a script called Day of the Iceberg about an iceberg that hit San Francisco, and we almost sold it to Sci-Fi Channel. So I still dabble with that.
Huh? That's awesome. Not that long ago, I met Neil Adams, the famous Batman Green Arrow comic book artist. He was, I'd love to have him on this show just for the hell of it, because he can talk about himself and his life and his philosophy and what it is to make art for hours on end without anyone getting a word in edgewise. He was like, Michelangelo? He's all right. Leonardo da Vinci? Shabby. Yeah, he was like actually, yeah, he was saying like the best artist ever at Pixar and Hollywood, the storyboard artist, like very passionately going on and on about it. As he's babbling, I'm like, have you ever done? And what I mean babbling in the best possible way.
Yeah.
Like I was on the edge of my seat. I'm still quoting him. Some of the stuff he was saying was so interesting. I'm like, you ever do anything else? He's like, yeah, I made a movie about an evil monkey in my spare time. Yes, Roma put it out. I'm like, what? You made a movie with the creators of Toxic Avenger in your spare time? He's like, yeah, me and my son were working on it. He was 5 at the time. I'm like, what are you? And, man, I would love to get you two in a room together sometimes, because this is the closest. I think you out Neil Adams on this show for me. The amount of stuff you've told me today, Micah, I am eternally grateful. Thank you so much for being on the show. People can follow you on Twitter. You have a Twitter account, if I remember correctly.
Mike J. Micah. So you can follow me there. And then we have IDARB Game, if they want to follow more of the game there, too.
Awesome. Yes, and IDARB coming out February on Xbox One. Hopefully a lot of new Xbox One owners at that point. It seems like they had a pretty good Black Friday, so waiting until February might have been a great idea in terms of install base and whatnot.
I think so. And also, we're giving out codes still. You have codes you're going to give out. But if you just tweet at me and follow me, I'll probably get you a code. We're giving out thousands of codes.
Whoa!
Sure. Yeah,
that
it's
is
crazy.
So yes, all right.
I don't know how we're gonna make money on this game. To be honest, actually, I'm being perfectly honest. I have no idea. I'm like, the more people I have it, like maybe that's better. I don't know, but like, I might be asking for a job in a few weeks.
No, people were pirating Minecraft for years, and that's how people ended up loving it enough to want to support it and give money to it and watch it on Twitch and watch it.
I just really like, you're right. What you said before, people don't know what it is. Like to me, that's why we have to give somebody away. People just need to play it to know what it is, and that's what we're doing.
I'll see if I can get a hold of Humpty Hump for certain.
That would be awesome.
I'll try my hardest for you. As for me, I'm at TronNuts on Twitter. You can watch the show later on subholmes.com/subholmesshow. I'm sorry, youtube.com/subholmesshow. You can listen to it later on iTunes and also Libsyn. Put the reruns up on Destructoid.com, where I'm sort of the boss. That's weird. I'm still getting used to that.
Who's the boss?
Who is the boss? Maybe it's me. I wish it was you. If you want to run Destructoid for a day, let me know. That would be fun.
Oh, that'd be like when a kid gets to be principal for a day. I'd love that.
We'll talk. Keep my email. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.